What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with the release of the UFC 276 lineup. It's official. International Fight Week will feature a massive card, including 2 title fights in Las Vegas the week of July 2nd. The card will feature the 4th fight between featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski against Max Holloway. It will also include the middleweight title fight between champion Israel Adesanya versus number 1 contender Jared Cannonier. This card will also include a pivotal middleweight matchup between Sean Strickland against Alex Pereira, the only man to knock out Adesanya, albeit in kickboxing. Pedro Munhoz will also take on Sugar Sean O'Malley, while Andre Muniz fights Uriah Hall, while former welterweight champion Robbie Lawler returns to fight Bryan Barberena. What do you think of this card? Are you excited for UFC 276 on July 2nd? And who are your early favorites to win these fights? Charles Oliveira reaches out to Tony Ferguson. Khamzat also chimes in. Some fighters are showing a ton of love to Tony Ferguson following his devastating loss to Michael Chandler at UFC 274 this past weekend. The former interim lightweight champion suffered a very tough loss in Phoenix, getting knocked out by a teep to the face in the second round. It was a beautifully timed front kick, one that really laid into Tony and put him unconscious for several minutes. The first time in Ferguson's career he suffered such a loss. Charles Oliveira, who also fought that night and won via submission over Justin Gaethje, showed Ferguson some love after the event by posting a gift of the two to Twitter with a caption that read, "We're among big dogs. Ups and downs are part of our journeys. I admire you a lot, Tony Ferguson. You've the history inside the octagon. Head up, El Cucuy. If you wish, let's train together in Shootbox's headquarters in Sao Paulo for your next fight. You're a brother." Then, Khamzat Chimaev, the undefeated welterweight with a ton of momentum behind him, he also posted some well wishes to Tony on Twitter. "Keep your head up, you are already a legend in this sport," at Tony Ferguson. Clearly, this is a massive setback for El Cucuy, who was one of the top lightweights for several years. While he never truly got the chance to fight for the undisputed title on account of tough breaks over his career, he's a highly respected, well-rounded athlete who is incredibly unorthodox but is held in high esteem by a ton of fighters who love his work ethic and attitude. As for what's next for Tony, it's unclear, but UFC President Dana White did state that Tony doesn't have to worry about his spot in the promotion, despite his 4-fight losing streak. What do you think about Oliveira and Khamzat posting messages in support of Tony online? Sean O'Malley looks past Pedro Munhoz to claim that Marlon Vera earned his rematch. Sugar Sean never counted his loss to Marlon Chito Vera a few years ago as something real. Of course, on paper, O'Malley was finished by Chito in the very first round via TKO back in August 2020 at UFC 252. O'Malley suffered a broken lower leg injury that clearly affected him in the fight, and Chito capitalized on it and handed O'Malley his very first professional loss. Since that fight, Sugar Sean has strung along 3 wins, all finishes, while Vera has gone 3-1, his lone loss to Jose Aldo, but he's on a 3-fight winning streak, including a win against top 10 bantamweight Rob Font at UFC Vegas 53 just a few weeks ago, while O'Malley has a matchup scheduled against number 10 bantamweight Pedro Munhoz at UFC 276 in July. He's already looking ahead and wants to take on Vera. This is what O'Malley stated in a recent interview with Ariel Helwani about that.
I think Pedro, depending on if Chito goes out there and beats someone, in the top 5, he probably could get a title shot. If he doesn't end up getting a fight, I would like to, finish Pedro and get that fight, and we'll see. Well, I in the past, I said he's got to earn a rematch, and I think he's done that.
O'Malley is clearly not short on confidence, but he's also never faced a top 10 fighter while they were ranked in the top 10. Munhoz will be the highest ranked fighter O'Malley has faced so far in the octagon. This is a massive fight for O'Malley, especially if he wants to keep the momentum going. What do you think about O'Malley talking about a Chito Vera rematch? How do you think that fight would go? And do you think O'Malley is looking past Munhoz too much here? Who do you feel will win the fight between O'Malley and Munhoz?
Mr. Jamal Hill, 11-1. I'll still try your ass on God. You heard what I said. Oh, it's a prank, it's a prank, it's a prank, it's a prank, it's a prank. Oh, fuck, bro.
Don't forget to take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the MMA Zone to stay up to date on all of the latest fight news. Dana White says Joe Rogan suggested a change in Islam versus Dariush fight. When Charles Oliveira missed weight by half a pound just a day before he was supposed to defend his UFC lightweight title, it created a bit of confusion atop the 155-pound division. Not only was Oliveira stripped, But because he beat Justin Gaethje at UFC 274 by a first-round submission, he now becomes the #1 contender for the vacant title. The original plan was to have the winner of this fight take on the winner of Islam Makhachev against Beneil Dariush, which was slated to take place this year, although it's not been booked yet. But with Conor McGregor coming back to the octagon later this year, Michael Chandler's emphatic win over Tony Ferguson, there are a few options that the UFC could take with the 155-pound division. One person who believes that the Dariush-Makhachev fight should be scrapped is Joe Rogan. During the UFC post-fight press conference, Dana White stated that longtime UFC color commentator Rogan pulled him aside and told him he shouldn't do that fight. Just check out this exchange between White and the Schmo during the post-fight presser about it.
After everything that went on this weekend, Beneil Dariush and Islam Makhachev, you still want to make that fight next?
I do, but Joe Rogan just grabbed me in the hallway and told me not to.
Winner of that fight, would that be for the #1 contender spot?
Yes.
Dariush and Makhachev were actually supposed to fight each other in February of this year, but Dariush suffered a serious ankle injury that originally was thought to be broken. Makhachev fought a short-notice opponent in Bobby Green and made quick work of him, seemingly sealing up the #1 contender spot. But Dariush, he then got word from his doctors a few days later that his leg was actually not broken and that he could come back much earlier to fight Makhachev. Still, that fight has yet to be rebooked, despite hints from the UFC's top brass that this would get worked out. But with Oliveira now fighting for the vacant lightweight title, him calling out McGregor, who remains the biggest draw in the sport, the UFC does have several options now. Oliveira has the longest winning streak in the division with 11, including wins over several top 10 fighters, while Makhachev has the second longest streak with 10 wins, followed by Dariush with 7 wins. What do you think about Joe Rogan suggesting they scrap the Dariush-Makhachev fight? And if that fight is scrapped, what do you think the UFC will do for the vacant lightweight title? After winning the women's strawweight title, Carla Esparza says Rose lost the fight to herself. The UFC women's strawweight battle between Rose Namajunas and Carla Esparza at UFC 274 had a lot of people talking, but for all the wrong reasons. The consensus is that this fight was incredibly boring, with any real action very few and far between, and the whole fight really coming down to takedown attempts. Now, days after being declared the winner by a split decision, along with being named the new queen of the 115-pound division, Carla Esparza is relaying what she believes happened in the octagon at the Footprint Center in Phoenix, Arizona last Saturday. This is what she told Ariel Helwani in a recent interview on the MMA Hour.
I definitely feel that she lost the fight to herself. I think she went in there and, she fought, I don't want to say with fear, but, she was worried about the takedown and very focused on that and didn't fight her game and didn't, let off as much as she could have.
Esparza goes on to talk about how Rose hadn't really been challenged much by a wrestler during her career, or even faced them much on her way to the top, saying Rose has mostly fought strikers or power punchers, but not flat-out grapplers. In contrast, Esparza has fought all kinds of fighters, including those with a similar skill set to Rose. Esparza says how her team must have taken a massive chunk of their camp to focus on takedown defense, and seeing that this was working in the fight, they kept telling Rose that she was doing well, when the reality was that she was too defensive. Esparza finally goes on to say that no one, not even the champion, can claim to win a fight that they pretty much just stay in the defensive mode. Rose was hesitant to get her offense going, which Esparza claims made her a bit skittish as well, as openings for strikes were hard to come by. This UFC 274 fight was a rematch of their encounter from all the way back in 2014 for the inaugural strawweight title, when Esparza used her superior grappling to put away Rose via submission in the 3rd round. Perhaps this played into Rose's mindset for the UFC 274 fight. What do you think? Do you agree with Esparza that Rose lost this fight more than anything? Do you agree with the decision to give the fight and the title to Esparza? Today's video was packed with some juicy stories from the fight world. What are your thoughts about what's going on in MMA? Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the MMA Zone to see more videos just like this. See you next time.